Welcome to the Dog Psychology Podcast with Todd and Art.
All right, so welcome to the Dog Psychology Podcast. We have another guest this week, which we're really excited to have, Angela Adan. Angela, how are you?
I'm amazing.
You are.
I thought it was Adan. It's Adan?
Aiden?
Damn. I've had that wrong in my head the whole time. I thought it was Angela Adan.
Funny story. I thought it was Adan too, by the way, because when I first saw it, I was like, oh, this girl's like, she's Hispanic? Because I went to high school with a guy named, last name was Adan. And so then every time you say Adan, I'm like, oh, I've been saying it wrong.
Italian.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
My wife's Italian.
Oh, nice.
Castanoli. So that's her
Nice.
maiden name. So very Italian.
Wow, that's very Italian.
So when we first met, so I think you might have been part of the first workshop I did. When did you, 2000?
October 2018. 16. 2018.
I think 18, yeah.
Yeah, October
So when you
2018.
did it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Where were you like in your dog journey then? Was that when you were just getting started?
No, I was involved in like dog rescue and all that heavily before, and then like pack walking, and I was like doing some clients and stuff, but I wasn't super confident. I was like very like, do I know enough to be teaching people,
I thought it was before that, 2018.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then that's
The reason why I remember that is because she was in my group. And I'll never forget that group because that was my favorite group for a long time. Debbie was in the group with Cagney. We had that lady, I forgot her name. She had the Doberman. She lived in California also.
she was cool.
Yeah. We had that lady from, I think, Germany maybe. But for a long time, your group was my favorite group. And I don't know if I ever told you this, Angela, but I think I have told you this. But the way we used to do, like how we would pick the students, it used to be like kind of random, or that's how it is now. But back then, I got the list ahead of time, and I was like, let me go to the list and find the people. And so I already known Debbie like from social media, kind of because she was already like messaging me and stuff like that. So I want to pick Debbie. But then I found you on social media. I'm like, oh, this girl's cool. And I'll never forget, it was that picture where you have your hat on backwards and you're walking like a pack of dogs. I think it's like San Yanez or something like that, or however you say that.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this girl's cool. So I'm gonna pick her. So I ended up picking you. And so that's how that happened at TCW.
Which is so crazy because I feel like I wouldn't have come back to TCW if it weren't for you, being like, oh yeah, let's have her as a volunteer. Like,
really.
Yeah.
Nice. I was gonna say a little stalkery right there, but anyway, so I looked you on social media. You're gonna be on my team, and ever since then, that's cool. Though. That was back when you could come in and easily get on the team.
Yeah.
And it was rare. If we look back, it's really kind of interesting to see how many different people came in and did that.
Yeah.
How long after you came as a student did you join the team as a volunteer?
I feel like it was pretty soon after. Because
Okay.
as soon as Art said, like, are you interested? I was like, yes, sign me up. Like, where do I need to go? And then I stuck around for 9 years.
Crazy, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, are there going to be any more, by the way? I mean,
I don't know.
This is the last hoodie I've ever worn. Yes.
All right.
Yeah, you retired. It's funny you retired, but it's like the whole thing retired. It didn't mean anything, I guess, Art. Sorry, buddy. We all did that thing with you.
I was hoping to go on without me.
It's valuable, Angela, as far as the team is the way we do things now. It's impossible to do it without what you do. And I mean, from my standpoint anyways, to be able to just know there's like a certain thing that I know I don't have to worry about. And that's what you're going to do. I literally don't have to worry about anything that you're going to bring, the dogs you're going to bring. And that's an invaluable part of what we do with the team and all the dogs that you bring and the responsibility that you have.
Well, explain what she does, by the way, because that's got a huge role.
I shouldn't really explain. She should. I can tell you from what I see. I mean, to me, it just looks like 30 dogs appear. That's what I see. Hey, Angela, I need like 25 dogs. All right. What do you need? Like kind of excited. We can have some of this. It's like custom ordering people, and it shows up and they get taken care of. And I joked on here one time that I couldn't even own your dogs. I mean, your dogs would die in my care because, I can barely give pills, it's really, that's not me.
Yeah.
And that's always been something that I've been overly impressed by the way that you conduct that side of yourself. So tell us, Angela, what is it that you do for us at the TCW?
Well, it's really funny because I live with, so many dogs, usually around 20. So I'm like used to doing this at home every day. So it's not really anything new when I come into the dog psychology center. But basically for training Caesar's Way events, Todd will tell me how many students, how many dogs he wants. And then I call up all of my friends and I will ask them to send me videos of all the dogs, especially if they have like, 5 at one house. I'm like, send me of all of them, in a group, or if you can't, like individual videos. And based off of the videos, I can just tell like, okay, those ones will be good. These ones might be a little too challenging. And I can just tell really quickly by, a 10-second video, like whether they're going to work or not. I feel like I've only had one dog in my 9 years come in that was probably a little bit too much for most students.
Which one was it?
That cattle dog that bit that girl in the leg the first
Yep.
day.
Yeah.
So you know what, that dog was a much, but there was also something about that group. I don't know if it was the dogs, if it was the students. Was that I don't know if that was the same one that Caesar got bit in, was like burning sage and stuff. That was, we remember we went a spell where there just was a lot of bites.
Yeah. That I think it was the same group. And then there was a Rottweiler who was, it's like these dogs were doing so good. Like when I met them first, didn't have any issues, didn't see it right away either. Cause they were like pretty good. But then I think especially with the Rottie, I think it was just like a little too much of like inexperienced handlers days in a row, But I like to say I do a fairly good job of like choosing 30
Amazing.
dogs, 40
Amazing
dogs
job.
all at one time. And then like organizing all of them to show up at one location. I'm feeding them all. I'm keeping them organized. Like I can tell you all their names, it's like second nature for me. I love doing it.
Well, that thing about watching everybody handle the dogs is unique. I got Blueberry, and it's a unique point of view. What did I watch? 75 people handle her.
Yeah.
And it was like hit and miss. You either were able to step in there and completely get in sync with it, or you would just completely be out of step. And I can imagine at the end of, because we would have these dogs there for a couple of weeks, some of those dogs have to be frustrated with the way they've been handled, because they try to do it a certain way. And I bet for you, and that was always something I wanted to honor from your point of view, is that I would never, ever, ever let the students like get into the mode of thinking corrections was the way to do it. I don't know if you've been up there a couple of times in the morning circles when we just put a lot of pressure on them for kind of being clowny. I'd be like, all right, guys, here's how, I would, so they understood it. Because to me, I was honoring the fact that you were bringing me these dogs, and we have to honor these dogs, and we have to honor the way this works, and learning dog.
I feel like I secretly loved, so the last round I sent in, one of the dogs that was there was my boyfriend's dog, and he's like a little mini golden doodle. He's pretty spicy. And, I just love that he was there, because if you correct that dog and you don't know him, he will turn at you, and like,
Cinnamon?
what are you doing?
What was the dog's name? Cinnamon?
No, Mick.
Mick, that's right.
Mick. Yeah, I have a video of it too. I'll send it to you just so you could see like the example. But this lady student had him, and like he was barking because he was unsure, but she was sitting on the ground, and she should have stood up and like went and looked, because he's like alerting. And she was sitting there and went to correct him, and he turned at her, and like she stopped right away and stood up. And I was like, okay, that's what you should have done first. But it's like, don't do that to dogs you don't know, like let's have a different option maybe, but it was like she went straight into that, and then Mick was like, nope, let me teach you.
That some of those dogs are great with that. Some of those students need it. What just flashed in my mind is when that student lost that dog, let go of the leash, and we had to go that hole over into the hill, and like use dogs and they'll round them up and stuff like that. I mean, we never lost a dog.
Yeah.
Nobody ever got hurt. No, I mean, nothing ever, we can say for 10 years, 9 years, we pulled it off. So well done, man. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I remember the way we used to do it, Angela, before you started bringing dogs. Like we used to go and evaluate the dogs. Like they would bring in all these dogs, and they would be there. And we're like, okay, we'll take that one. We'll take that one. And I'll never forget, there was one day, like, because, we would be there for Fundamentals 1, then we had that break. And so that during that break was, our free time. I wasn't going to be working. And so like all the trainers showed up to go look at the dogs. I didn't show up. Todd was so angry with me. He like, you got to look at the dogs. It's part of our job. I'm like, dude, like
Shit. Really?
Yeah, you don't remember this? Like you laid into me. Then you came in, Angela. I'm like, I don't need to go. And that's literally what happens now. We trust you completely. I'll tell, like, I want this kind of dog, I want this kind of dog. And I don't even care what they look like. I trust you enough to go get them and you bring them. That's all I have to do. So you make our job so much easier. So thank you.
Yeah.
John did it a couple times before, but there was a time, this is where, you know who's always really like overly impressed me is Yoa. We had to go get dogs from a rescue in Riverside. So we're on our way to Vegas, Mio and Steve, and we have to stop off at a rescue to pick dogs for the fundamentals too. And I guess it's Riverside. It's somewhere out in the desert. We're in the desert. And we pull into this rescue and we go in, and there's some fucking gnarly dogs. This is a rescue that's got a lot of, there's a lot of gnarly dogs in this place. And I look over and Yo is kneeling down in front of a kennel, and some dog had come up and was firing off in his face. And he goes, he gleeked, he spit kind of like that little gleeky stream right out of his mouth, and he spit right into the dog's mouth. And the dog went to the back and relaxed. And he goes, yeah, it's very weird when you spit something out and it goes into the mouth of another dog. They'll always do this. I was like, what the fuck did I just see? Fast forward like 6 or 7 months. Nick Walls? Remember that dude, that student? He has the facility in Ohio.
Dog World or whatever.
Ohio. I'm in Dog World, and there's some little Shar-Pei that's just a little fucker. And it's coming up, it's doing the same thing. Well, I can't leak, but I put a little bit of water in my mouth and go like this. I'm like, let's see if this shit works. And he comes up and I go, dude.
I can't believe what I'm hearing.
Oh, it goes in the back.
What am I listening to right now?
What's that?
What am I listening to right now? What?
Well, excuse me. This is the thing. We had to go pick dog. And this is the whole time we had to pick him, and I'm watching Yoa. And if you ever just let Yoa go in front of a bunch of dogs and you like don't give him any direction, he just wanders off and does shit like that.
Yeah, Yoa's also, God, I can't believe I'm going to say this. Yoa's also the one that asked his client for her panties so he could train the dog for like, whether she was going to be expecting a baby or something like that.
Maybe.
So I don't know if I trust all his advice, by the way. I love the dude to death, but
I didn't trust it, but then I did it and I trusted it.
Oh my God.
Well, thankfully, I've never had to do that when I'm picking out dogs for you guys.
Yeah, I'm glad you haven't had to do that either, Angela.
Yeah.
All right, let's go back to the beginning, Angela. Where did you get your start? Like, where did you, I think you started as a vet tech or?
Yeah, I was a vet tech for like 14, almost 15 years. And I was going to go to vet school. And I just kind of fell out of interest of the whole schooling thing. I did all of my pre-vet and was going to go to UC Davis. And yeah, and then instead of going to school, I actually applied to like a service dog, the Bergen University of Canine Studies. You go and you get a service dog and you train them and you learn all about the service dog industry. So I was going to go that route. And then last minute, which is like my whole life is just like a last minute opportunity came, and I ended up moving to Santa Barbara. And then I found out on Facebook, there was like a post and it was like, little Peggy Sue, the Chihuahua with deformed legs is going to die in the shelter tomorrow. And I was like, Peggy Sue can't die. And, I drove to the shelter to go get this one dog. And they're like, oh, this dog's going to get euthanized too. So I left the shelter with 2 dogs that day. And then I was just blown up by like everyone tagging me and like, all these dogs that were going to die. And I had no idea that dogs were getting euthanized at this rate. And it was in LA. And once I found out, I was like, oh, I have to do dog rescue. So I opened a rescue, and within a year, I won Nonprofit of the Year in Santa Barbara County, which was really cool. Like it blew up, And I've been doing that ever since. I'm 36 now, and I started when I was 21. So,
is that what took you to the TCW? Was
yes,
just to learn more from that?
Yeah. So I worked at the very first dog shelter I worked at was a no-kill shelter. So dogs would live in kennels for many years. And with that, they would be very intense. Like they had multiple bites on their records. They couldn't be around other dogs. There was like all these restrictions, and it got to a point where like, oh, Bryce bit someone again, and it was like, like, it was just like the normal thing. And I'm like, there has to be a different way. Like there has to be a way we can like work more with these dogs. And I started taking like pretty challenging dogs from the shelter, and they would I watched a lot of Caesar, that's how I knew who he was. And I would take all these challenging dogs, never meeting them, and they would show up at my house. I'd take like 4 or 5 at a time. And I'm like, wow, they're doing really well here. But every time I would go to like move them to a foster or adopt them out, they're like biting people or getting in dog fights. And like, I couldn't quite figure out the disconnect. I'm like, I don't know. I haven't seen that yet. Like, so I went to training Caesar's Way. I was like, I just need more education. And I was in Art's group. Art was my trainer and invited me back. And I was there for 9 years. So
How were you making it work? I mean, what was it that you were innately doing? And then what was it that if you can do that, you obviously didn't need the education on what you were doing. Did you need the education on knowing what you were doing and how to share that, how to share the message?
I think what I needed was like confidence that I am good at this and I can teach other people. I was really shy growing up, had a really hard time.
I remember that too. I was going to say, no shit. That was like,
yeah.
you've like hidden your shadow.
Yeah.
You
Even
remember?
when I went to TCW, I was like, oh, I'll just be back here. And thank God I had Ferris with me. So like, it was a conversation starter. And Ferris is like so outgoing. For those of you who don't know, Ferris is my little Jack Russell Terrier who's in a wheelchair who can just like do anything attitude, And I brought him for that reason because I knew like, okay, I'm not going to know anyone there. It's going to be really hard for me to socialize with people. And I was like, I'll just bring Ferris, But I feel like I just needed confidence. And what I did with the rescue dogs coming in, and I was like, everyone's going to walk together. So we did pack walks every day. And, because I saw that on the show and that was the biggest thing. Like everyone's going to wait to eat their food. And I just knew like the basics, of like, let's not nurture a ton of excitement. Let's, get everyone exercising every day. And it kind of just worked.
That, from where I sit anyways, we see a bunch of students and there's the people that come through that just somehow know what to do. And then there's the people that come through that will tell you exactly what needs to be done, but they can't do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there's it's an interesting way in which I see it done. And that actually, talking about Yoa, that rings true to what Yoa said. Yoa would go watch YouTube videos and then go out and do it and go do it, and living it and doing it.
Yeah.
Is what, I see. And then there's people that go out and want to learn it, the serial learner.
Mm-hmm.
And they almost get too clogged up. And what I remember is I don't ever remember you needing to learn anything, so there's very few students. Art's the one that remembers everybody. There's very few students that I can remember like when they came through.
And the date and the year.
Yeah, it's impressive.
Dude, it's crazy. Do you remember your own anniversary? Do you ever forget silly shit like that? Do you like forget birthday?
All the time. I mean, not my anniversary, but like,
her phone number for back then. So how is it that you can forget something like that? But yeah, that was all I ever remembered. Was that you, it was always, you just said it, confidence. And not even that. I didn't even see it as not confident. You were just really shy, like a bashful shy.
But I think also, Angela, that you didn't really want to overstep on things too, that you were very respectful about things. But you can also see, because this is one thing that I noticed from the very beginning was, something we all look at is how people handle the leash, right? That tells a lot. So even though somebody may not be confidence can really show up in how they handle the leash. Like you can just see it, So that was one of the things that I saw. Yoa too, same thing. That's why I brought you. I'm the one that said I think we should bring Yoa also. Like I'll take the blame for that one for spitting in the mouth. I'll take blame for that one. But there was just how he handled his dog Batman. Like I just saw the way he handled. Like man, this guy's good. Let's talk about Hero. Was it Girl on a Mission or what is that thing that you did?
Yeah. I just get these like crazy ideas and I'm like, I'm going to drive across the country for 2 months and offer free dog training to whoever wants to sign up for it. And I didn't think anyone was going to sign up for it, but I just put it out there. And then BarkBox, I don't know how they found out about it, but they ended up picking up my story and it went viral. And so the first time that I posted about it, I had so many emails. And then I was like very trusting of people years ago too. But I was like, okay, do you need help? And then the people would be like, I do. You can also stay with me. So I stayed with a bunch of different families and they were all amazing. Thank God. But like, I would never do that at this age, But I met so many cool people and people who I'm still friends with today. Like I think of like Lincoln, who's come out to TCW and just some like really cool people. And I drove around the country and I did it for 2 years in a row and just offered free dog training to whoever wanted to sign up for it. We did like pack walks, one-on-one sessions, just whoever needed it. Like, I just want to help as much as I can, you know?
Did you stay with us? You stayed
Yeah.
with us, right? Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. You stayed with us.
How many people did you help?
Well, the first trip I went through like 20 different states, and I did at least one client for every state and one community event. And then for a lot of those, I stopped at rescues. So it would be like groups of their fosters or people who work in rescues. They would come do a class with me. And basically they would just like, I used to be really brave. They would just be like, this is Buddy who's lived here for 5 years and no one can handle him. And I'd be like, okay, great. Like, give me a leash, you know, let me like take him out and work him. And then I'll start explaining stuff to you. And I had one girl show up who she had never been able to hand her dog off to anyone. And if I showed up at like a community event where there was a lot of people, I would have to go like address or help whatever dog was most intense. And so I remember I went up there and her dog, it was just flying around, lunging at everyone, like lunging at me. And I was like, oh, can I take your dog? You know, do you feel okay about that? And she immediately handed me the leash and then the dog calmed down. And, you know, we like went through a whole session. But to this day, she's like, I never had been able to hand my dog off to anyone, you know? So it was really cool. And to this day, too, I'm like, I don't know how I did half of the stuff that I did. Like, I'm just like, just stuff works out for me, you know, and that's just kind of like the story of my life. But and maybe that's the confidence thing too, you know, where I'm just like, I don't know.
Well, it sounds like you've kind of accepted that way of approaching things.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, some people plan everything out, and it sounds like you'll get an idea and just go.
I'm just like very much
younger, it's one thing, but you trust it. I mean, the way you even talk about it, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I didn't know you did that. That's really cool.
Yeah, it was really, really cool. I had like the news show up at one place. There was over 100 people who showed up at one of my events, and like people were bringing like really intense dogs, especially when you get over to like New York and New Jersey. Like the people are really intense and the dogs were really intense over there, like very reactive. And I'm like, wow, this is a completely different vibe than California, you know? So I started kind of learning like, well, obviously like the people are affecting the dogs in a much more intensity, you know, over here. So
that's why they have Steve.
Yeah, right. Perfect.
You know, when I went, and I don't know if you saw this when you were in Germany, or when I was in France, I was actually shocked by the intensity, the average intensity of the dogs I was working with. I was like, what the fuck? I mean, it's like, it didn't make any sense. It didn't make any sense that with like all the space and everything, if you went back and kind of like looked at each region of the United States, were there definitely differences in the way the dogs were behaved?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I learned so much about like, I guess just like different cultures in different states too, because the people are very different. And that was kind of a shock for me. But then as I traveled, like, you know, the more to the other side of the country I got, the more intense it was getting. And I wasn't having to use muzzles on dogs until I got to like New Jersey. And I was like, oh, wow, this is, you know, we're going to need to muzzle that dog because it was just a lot.
What was the heaviest case in all of that? And how many years ago was this?
Like 5, maybe? No, 7. I don't know. I'm not great with dates. Opposite of Art.
What was like the heaviest case?
So one of the dog rescues in New Mexico was dealing with an animal hoarder, and it was on a big open property. And for months, they had been trying to get a dog that was pregnant. And by the time I got there, it was very much almost about to give birth. So this lady finally agreed to let us onto the property. And it was a very flighty dog. It was on over like 2 acres. Like it was not fenced in, you know, like it was definitely challenging. And the dog was very nervous of people. And so I'm like, okay, I need a leash, I need food, and I need a crate and a blanket. And I need for all of you guys to go somewhere else, like to be in your car, you know? And they were like, okay, here's all these things. So everyone like left the area, and I'm walking out there and I'm getting charged by like the packs of dogs too, because they were really territorial, you know? And I'm just like, we're good. Like, you know, you just kind of had to like be okay by it. And then I made it out to where that dog was, and I just started like tossing some food, got her close, and then I put the food down and made like a little snare out of the leash, and I was able to get the dog and put her in a crate. And it took me like over an hour to do it, but I was like, just send me out there, like I got this, you know?
Why did you need the blanket?
Just in case the dog started like biting or panicking, and I didn't want to like choke the dog, just put the blanket over and put her in the crate.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But that was like not like the most intense, but it was definitely like you're going out there and you're seeing dogs living in rabbit cages and the heat. Like it was emotional, you know, you're like, oh my God, this is really bad. Like it was very like draining. So that's why I was like, I'm getting this dog. Like these puppies are not living this life, you know?
How do you deal with that? Sorry, Art, I know I'd pipe in, but I mean, it's like, how do you deal with that emotional side? That's all. And again, that's always been something too that, you know, I'm always impressed by people that hold the characteristics that I don't. And one of those is that type of just unrelenting compassion and almost self-sacrifice for what you're doing. You know, like, where does that come from?
I mean, yeah, it's rough. Well, one thing that I think about is when you're dealing with someone who's an animal hoarder, you have to go out there very like nice and build their trust and, oh yeah, okay, what do you know, like just the energy has to be like very gentle. Otherwise they're not going to let you help. And I think that was more challenging for me than anything, because you want to like say what you feel when you're out there, but you can't, you know, because if they say no, then it's a whole legal thing of now getting animal control involved. And if they can't do anything, what else are you supposed to do? You know, so that part was challenging. But I think, I don't know, just like me being so shy in the world as a little girl. And I just think it gave me a lot of like understanding of humans and patience. I'm a very patient person. But I think that definitely played a role.
Talk a lot about, you know, the confidence. Obviously, you're a lot more confident now than what you were when I first met you. I mean, again, I don't think you were not confident. I just think that you're kind of shy and come out. What do you feel like brought that out, the confidence?
Teaching classes, definitely like on the road trip, I had like over 100 people showing up to these things. And I'm like, you want to learn from me, you know? And then and that was like definitely a confidence booster. I kind of saw myself a little bit differently after those trips. And then also having to go out and be like, okay, it's just me by myself on the road. Like I'm here to teach all of these people. I didn't know what was showing up. And I helped as many people as I could, you know, like made changes and whatever dogs were showing up and provided information. And that was like a huge confidence thing. When I left from California and when I hit New York, I just like got emotional too, because I'm like, oh my God, I've never driven this far before. I made it by myself. Like I'm just on the road, like doing my thing, you know? And I was just like so proud of myself that I had to pull over and I was like crying. I was like, oh my God, I did it. Like I made it to the other side of the country, you know?
Were you in an RV?
No,
Not the
I
first
was in
time.
my truck. Yeah.
Tundra.
I was in my, yeah, big old Tundra. And so when I got to New Jersey, everyone was like looking at me, you know, like I went to get gas the first time and they're like, they come to your window, you know, because they pump your gas there. And they're like looking at me and looking at my truck. And one guy like made a comment about how big my car was, because it was a pretty big truck. And then once I got into New Jersey, I was like, oh my God, the driving is like insane down here. And so I kind of, you know, knew why they were like joking with me about it.
Did you see Steve?
Yeah, I went to a pack walk with Steve.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when you came down here and you stayed with us. You had that big old truck, and also, I have a funny story when you brought the RV out, and you had Freddie with you, and so you share the story, Angela. Like,
yeah, so I had a little Chihuahua named Freddie Mercury. She got very famous on social media. So I flew from California to New York to buy an RV, and on the way home, I was going to do like meet and greets with Freddie. And the one in Texas, it was in Dallas, Texas, and I'm getting on the freeway, and Art knew that I was going to be there. And but we had made no plans to like meet up at that point, you know? So I'm getting on the freeway and then I look over and I'm like, oh my God, I know that guy. And it was Art, like right as I was getting on the freeway, pulling up next to me. And I was like all excited. I'm like, wow, what are the odds of that? Like
random.
super crazy.
Not if it's a stalker. Can we talk about this?
Dude, it was
Same
dude,
exact time.
I was going to an appointment, right? And I knew Angela was gonna be in town. And I think we did agree like the next day we're gonna meet at Truck Yard.
Yeah.
And so I'm driving and here comes on the on-ramp. I see an RV and I just told myself, I wonder if that's Angela. Just kind of say that. And I look over and I just see Angela like turning around and like we both like lock eyes. We're like, hey, what's up? I think we texted or called each other. Can't remember what it was. You with Melanie or what was her name?
Emily.
Emily, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, it was just so funny. And by the way, these weird stories between me and Angela has happened other times. Okay.
This is like the second freeway story in
Yes.
Texas that's happened too.
So the first time the first time she came over, I think we were going to an appointment. You were going to an appointment with me, I think. I don't remember.
Yeah.
And so we were talking about like TCW and also stuff. And there was this one student that was in that same group that we were like kind of talking about. We were laughing because his business name was kind of a funny name, right? And he was from the area. And I'm like, not even close to where this guy lives. DFW is huge, okay? And this guy lives way north. I live way south. And Angela, we're driving. We're talking about this guy. And all of a sudden, this car passes. And it's that guy's business. You see it on the back windshield, like his business name. And we just die laughing. Like, we're just cracking up. And then we're like trying to catch him, We end up not catching him because he's driving too fast. But it was just funny that we were talking about him. And then he just shows up, like, right in front of us.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Oh,
that's the universe working. You froze up, Art.
I know.
I don't know if you
what
froze up.
happened.
Yeah. It's all that excitement.
Device struggling records is going to be to your high load on your device.
It's kind of crazy how that works, though. How you can be talking about somebody, thinking about somebody, and next thing you know, that somebody drives by, calls you, they're right there in front of you. Like you keep
That happens to me all the time. People be like, "Oh my God, I was just thinking about you," and then you text or called, and I'm like, "Yeah, it happens a lot to me." Yeah.
So how has it been out there with the fires? You're kind of I right there. I've been seeing some stuff from a bunch of posts, dogs needing homes and stuff, but how has it been from where you're at? Art, are you still with us?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm just
No.
I have to close some stuff out.
So over the summer, I moved, and at my new house, I never posted that this happened or anything. But I was actually under mandatory evacuation 2 times, which was like very scary, especially living with the amount of dogs that I live with.
Yeah, no kidding.
And the first time it happened, there was a huge fire on the hill right next to my house, like huge. And it wasn't contained. There was like helicopters flying everywhere, and cops were like pounding on your doors telling you to leave. Like it was like, I was like,
Was this around the times that that same time that it burned toward the coast, that it was in
right
Palisade?
before.
Okay.
Yeah, it was right before. It was a different fire. And I quickly, my boyfriend and I were like running to load up all the dogs into the vans and the cars and everything. So like I'm prepared for the fire should it happen. But it's still like, oh my God, is our house going to burn down? And it happened 2 times. Like it happened once, and then like 3 months later we had to evacuate again. And it was just like, you're like, what happens? The second time with the LA fires, it's affected my friends' businesses. Megan had a bunch of clients whose houses burnt down in Altadena. So it's definitely like affected her in that way. The shelters, like Pasadena Humane Society, is overflowing. Over 200 dogs came in. And I don't think a lot of that, and cats too, but I don't think a lot of them got claimed because now people don't have anywhere to live.
Do you think people went back looking for them, or is it just like, hey, I can't get anywhere, let's just go ahead and it is what it is? Because that was, I'm looking for a little deaf chihuahua, by the way, if anybody,
I will find you one.
Yeah, there you go. So, that's what I was curious about, is like, what are the resources, the dog resources like out there now? All the rescues are full. Everything's maxed out, I would imagine.
We were already maxed out before this happened. Thankfully, some rescues out of the state are taking in a lot of dogs. So we've, moved dogs to Washington and, Oregon and just kind of the surrounding states who can handle a little bit more than we can right now. So that's been really nice. Like a lot of people have stepped up to take dogs from out of state.
This Art?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah. So I was my wife found a notebook of when I was working with Lynn, and one of the things was written down was the Pacific Palisades Rec Center. So I did a 2-week program with Lynn right there where everything burned. And Art, you said at the beginning of this, when we the time in between the workshops, we stayed in a bunch of the houses that burned down on the coast. So it's hard to say. I think we think 2 or 3 of those ones. Are you freezing, Art?
I don't know
You
what's
keep
going
freezing.
on. I don't know. It's saying that I'm gonna pause real quick, all right? I'm gonna shut everything down.
Yep.
Just kind of hang on.
When we come back on, you can talk
Yeah,
about
that's what we
your
want to talk
show.
about.
Yeah.
And by the way, you okay talking about Lynn?
Why
Oh, the
not?
show too. So, all right,
Yeah.
Oh, Lynn.
Okay.
Where are you living right now, Angela?
Lake Elsinore, it's near like Temecula.
Yeah.
But my boyfriend owns a house and he owns it. Like that's all paid off. So it's really cool.
In Temecula, is that where you were saying that you guys got evacuated from?
Lake Elsinore. So, yeah, there's like a hill that's well known. That's why I didn't post about it, because if I posted, people would know exactly where I was.
Okay.
But yeah, the whole hillside was just, it burnt like I think it was like 10,000 acres or something crazy. Like it was scary and it happened quick,
So how do you you have like evacuation kits? You have like bags?
My van is all set up with crates in there. So it's like, I just threw in food in one of the trucks and clothes. But we have like bins packed here already. That's like important paperwork or like, it's like the fire bin. Like if a fire happens, you just grab that bin. You don't have to pack anything.
Well, I guess, it's kind of like the hurricane thing here, but that happens so much quicker.
Yeah.
How do the dogs react when the fires are happening?
Oh man, it was rough because I had one dog here who was a little bit new and he was staying with me for like just severe anxiety. Like he got kicked out of vet hospitals because, he was hurting himself. The first day he got to me, he like ripped one of his nails off in the crate. And like, it's just like this dog had so much like
So he
stress.
ranted on himself a lot?
He just, like he didn't want to be separate from you. And then if it was like, he was just like panicking, but like so much anxiety. And like, he had been through like 5 different people by the time he got to me. So it was like just worse, so that dog, he was so stressed that day because I was a little stressed, I'm like, oh shit, like, do we need to leave? Do we not? So I ended up having to give him some drugs, which I never do. But I was like, it's like infecting all of the dogs, like they all now need to be in a small space with him. So,
What do you give when you have to do something like that?
so he came with acepromazine, which I wouldn't normally use just because it's a sedative, but it knocked him out and he was calm for the rest of the evening.
Have you ever watched dogs eat weed?
Yeah.
But seriously, we're told that it's dangerous for them, but I have to say, every time I've ever seen a dog consume it, all I see is a dog that goes into the most relaxed state ever.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of people when I worked as a vet tech, a lot of people would come into the vet hospital and like panicked, like my dog ate weed and like the vets would make them vomit and put them on IV fluids. And I'm like, just let them go to sleep. Like,
right.
Okay.
Yeah. I think we should be using that more in cases like you were just talking about.
Yeah. I've seen like once a dog gets so stressed, it can make them more anxious depending on what you use. So okay. I definitely say it's something that you need to give them when they're already relaxed and just to like maintain that. But yeah, in that situation, it was like a little too late,
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Let's see if this works.
You said something. I'm curious about this from a standpoint because you deal with so much rescue. Do you think after, especially for some dogs, after they get flipped through a few homes, they become overly codependent? It changes like the social dynamic to where they become much more of a glommer. And if you don't understand how to like be very limited with that, do you think that happens due to the flipping of homes?
Yeah. I get a lot of dogs with like, anxiety when they show up here, and they've been moved through so many different homes. And when an adopter comes along with a dog like that, I make us do a lot of like back and forth meetings so the dog gets used to them and the environment with me around. Because when I go to hand off the dog, I don't want them to have a setback, but it's like when they're getting bounced around to so many fosters, they're kind of like shook, like, where am I? Like, now it's like new rules here. How do I figure this out? It's new dogs, new people, like, and the people who have had them before me are generally like pretty inexperienced. They just want to help, but they don't have like a lot of the knowledge on how to help a dog move past that. So when dogs show up like that, I have like a little electric go-kart. And once they're ready, like I give them like a day or two just to get used to me. And then once they are, then we go on the go-kart every day and just like drain all of that, like pent up, whatever, anxiety, energy, all of that. And then it usually goes away fairly quick. But I think the dogs definitely have a harder time being bounced around multiple different times. And then once they can finally like settle in somewhere, then it's like easy,
Well, this is a question for both of you guys. Do you think dogs can compare us? Do you think a dog, okay, so a dog's in a shitty environment, right? So they go, and then they come to us. And like somebody like you, Angela, just balances out everything, the love, all of it. And they come to people like us, and then they have to get passed to another home. Do you think they can compare? I know the intellect that takes, but do you think on some weird level that F's with them? That they find this perfect balance of what it should be, and then they go into something that's not that?
I would say so, yes, just because I've handed off dogs and sometimes they'll struggle with the new people. And then I go in to do, some training and I'm like, damn, they weren't doing that when they were with me, and it's like, sometimes I feel for the dogs. I mean, I have the opportunity with the rescues that I work with to be picky on who adopts them. Thank God. Because some rescues will just be like, yes, say yes to everyone. And I'm like, no, like not the right fit or something. So at least I can do that. But there are some times when I feel a little bit bad where I'm like, I mean, this person like means well, but I know the knowledge isn't there. And you guys are going to go through a little period where you might struggle a little bit in the beginning, but I kind of just have to like let go.
I know you do a lot of matchmaking also. You kind of look at the family and the dog. Has there ever been a situation where you like, this dog is like bulletproof, like he's perfect, and you hand him off to somebody and they're like, they still mess it up?
No, thankfully that's never happened to me. It hasn't.
That's good.
Yeah.
Didn't you do that for Caesar on the show? So you've been part of two shows. One, obviously, with Caesar, the last season, and then your own show. So why don't you take us through, what it was like working with Caesar on the show and what you're doing with your own show?
Yeah. So it was really cool just from like the back end of it to learn about like the sound and, getting mic'd up and learning about all of what goes in to produce a show and to make a show. It's a ton of work. Like it was really long days for me. I loved it though. And for Caesar's show, it was like a family would come in, say what they wanted, which was crazy to me because their lists were like, I'm like, oh my God, I don't know if I'm going to be able to find, because they're like, we want a dog with, it can't have long hair. It can't shed. It has to be, it was like all of these like crazy expectations, but I would do it. I would find them 5 dogs and then show Caesar. Caesar would choose 3 of those dogs, and then those 3 dogs would meet the family. And so it was really cool, being able to do that. I did that for 2 seasons for him. And then now going into it, I'm like, let me have my own show doing this. Like, this is what I do on a daily basis. This is what I've done for many years. So my goal, it's called The Deserving Dog Show. It's on YouTube. And my goal with the show is to educate people about how bad it is out there, like how overpopulated it is with animals, and to hopefully like, please stop buying dogs from breeders. There's so many cool dogs in shelters. And if you don't think so, like contact me and I will find it for you. Like I am the best at what kind of dog do you want? I'll go out and find it, So like I have a lot of friends who hit me up now and they're like, hey, my client wants to adopt this dog. And Caitlin and Adam, they're out in Florida and they just hit me up and they're like, we need this very specific dog. Do you have one? And I was like, yep, let me know when you're ready for him, And so I just found, I have a friend who's a flight attendant. And so she flew him out halfway and then they went and got him. And, like I can, like, let's just all adopt. Like I will find you a dog and I'll find you transport, So it's like my favorite thing in the world to do. And then also I want the show, there's like going to be some more like training stuff on there, you know, and it's just going to kind of go into like everything that's really lacking in rescue. I mean, it exists, but it's like, where can you watch it or look it up, you know?
It's amazing you've been able to stay in rescue for so long and like at least looks like keep it together, because it's very difficult. It's such an emotional experience. And I mean, and rescues don't want to be practical. They don't want to, and I don't mean that in a negative way. That's just not the way they're operating. When you operate with emotion, practicality isn't always, first and foremost. And for you to consistently stay in it for so long and still be so passionate about it. Again, that's why I'm always the most impressed by the people that seem to easily do what to me would be monumentally challenging, and I don't know how you would be about this, Art, but I try to put myself in her position, and I just think, I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. I mean, all the dog stuff, like the educational, yeah, the handling, yeah, but the emotional involvement, what you've given from yourself is what I'm the most impressed about. And I've always felt protective over you because of that. It's like, I'm always like, let's keep her shielded and let her do it. Let her go. And I really have. I mean, it's because I've always been so, I don't know, I guess impressed by the ability to do that for so long over and over again.
Yeah, thank you. My mom and I were actually just talking about this today with the news that I shared with you guys earlier, but she was like, you've sacrificed so much for many years. And anytime I would move, she would come and look at the houses I lived in, and they were not good. But I always could have dogs there, and I was like, I don't care about my comfort. Like, the dogs would always come first. And I just I was just dedicated to them and got very passionate about it and felt really good doing it, and I don't think I could ever really get out of dog rescue. I still live with a ton of dogs. That's the plan to do for a long time. But I just love it. I love it a lot. There are some days, like last month, I actually got really sick. I had really bad pneumonia. I couldn't even get up. Like, I was super weak. I lost a bunch of weight. And that's when I was like really feeling it, because I had 20 dogs here, and I'm like, I still have to get up and take care of all of these dogs. And the first 3 days was a little rough because I couldn't exercise anyone. So like by day 3, they were really like feeling it, I mean, they could play in the yard, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
And I was just like, whoa, like, what am I doing? And then I got healthier. It took like a month though. And I was like, okay, I'm okay now. Like, we can go back to this. But I was like, whoa, I need to like maybe downsize, but it was just, now I'm like backed up to what I was. And I just love it too much. I'm like, what else would I be doing with my time? It's just fun for me.
I will say, Angela, the show is really good. It's produced by your boyfriend, Sid.
Yeah.
I subscribe to it and make sure I get those notifications. I always look forward to watching them. Ben made Ben, I saw you got a dog for Ben.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
Yeah. He took 2 dogs.
That was awesome. And I saw like how, again, basically what you've talked about, like transporting, like you did the whole thing, transported a dog to near Chicago or outside Chicago.
Yeah.
In Wisconsin, or where does he live?
Beloy? I don't know.
It's Wisconsin, right?
Yeah, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Find me a little deaf Chihuahua.
I will.
Yeah,
I'm gonna text you a photo.
I love having. I mean, it's normal for me, and I want a little dog for. It doesn't have to be a Chihuahua, but a little deaf dog.
Okay.
For Hercules, I think he needs a little buddy.
That's the thing I love the most, is when friends hit me up, especially if I know them and I'm like, oh, this is an amazing home. I'm like, what kind of dog do you need? Give me like 2 weeks to find it. I will find it for you, and then I'll set up transport and you'll have a dog. So
that's like it's like a business model right there.
I know.
1-800 get dog.
Yeah. I want to make little cards.
Totally, right? Too bad you can't, like, humans wouldn't be more reliable. If humans could be reliable, I mean, you really could do that. You go, all right, here's what we got, right? When you get this thing, this is what you're going to do. This is the plan. These are the steps you're going to go through.
Yeah.
And, this is what your little guy is going to be able to do. But humans aren't that reliable for that one. Kind of predictably.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It's been really cool though. Like, I had a younger couple who works with my mom, and they're like talking about that they want a dog. And so my mom's like my biggest, like, she talks about me to everybody. But she's like, oh, my daughter, like, don't go to the shelters. Like, you don't know what you're getting. Like, contact my daughter and she'll find you the right dog. And so they hit me up and had a little interview with them. And then I got 2 puppies. And so I'm able to like 2 litter mates. And I'm like, okay, this puppy's not the right fit for you, but this one is. And this is exactly what's going to happen when it gets to your house. And this is how you're going to deal with it because the dogs are with me,
Right.
So I get to like prepare them before the dog arrives, which is really cool. And I'm like, this is exactly how it's going to go, So that's been really cool too. And this puppy that I'm talking about, I'm sending it on transport on Saturday, and they're going to receive him. So
Sweet.
yeah.
Nicely done.
Hey, Angela,
It's predictable it can be.
Yeah. Right.
hey, Angela, on the show, I also saw that you have Lynn on there. Lynn, we used to be part of this show, still a friend of ours. How did you meet Lynn, or how did that all happen?
It's kind of a funny story. I had never heard of Lynn before. And he hit me up on social media. He was like watching videos of mine on there, and he was like, hey, I have this like program I want to try out. Do you want to be a part of it? And I didn't really know what it was. And I'm just like, was very hungry for information at that point. And I was like, yes, sign me up. And so basically he was like, okay, make some videos of you working with dogs. This is what I want. And you can come over and we'll do, break down the videos. And so I didn't know him. And I just was like, okay, yeah. And then I brought these videos to his house, and I was there for like 3 hours. And it was just like so much.
A 2-second video.
Seconds video.
It was. He started playing a video. It was like play. And then 3 seconds into it, it was like pause. Okay, let me tell you the 10 things you can change. And I was like, whoa, like I didn't know. It was so like detail oriented. And it woke me up though, because he was like really, I like cried when I was at his house. Like he was really tough the first day with me. He was like, what are you doing? Like watch one video I posted on social media and like kind of like went at me for it, and I was like, okay, I get it. Like, you're right. I won't do that again. And then I became like very serious in the way that I was working with dogs, maybe like a little too serious. It wasn't like as fun for me anymore. I was too focused on like, I don't want to make a mistake anymore with the dogs. Like I was just like, before I was just like kind of having fun, but I didn't know how it was affecting the dogs. And sometimes it was in a negative way and I just didn't know. So very grateful to have his information. And then we worked together for a while doing shadow programs. So I would travel with him. We'd go to people's houses and teach them. But I've just been able to learn for many years from Lynn, which is really cool.
It's part of the show too.
Yeah, he's on the show. I got these like 2 feral dogs that my friend hit me up and she's like, hey, I want these dogs. Can you go pick them up? And I was like, yeah, sure. I wasn't even able to see them at the shelter. I didn't know this because they were so bad. I wasn't even able to go back to where they were. They put them right into crates for me and brought them out to my car. And then I got home and I had to take them out, because they made a mess in their crates and I needed to get them into the house. And it was like a rodeo. Like it was really intense. I was like, oh my God, these are like, one is definitely feral, and one is probably under socialized, but I had to call Lynn. I was like, this is a lot. Like, I'm going to need your help, And so he started offering advice. And then he actually came out and stayed at my house during Christmas so I could leave to go see my family. And he stayed with these 2 dogs and like loosened the jar for me. So definitely very valuable.
Did you bring them to one of the workshops?
Oh, I just got them recently.
Okay.
2 dogs on the show. There's these 2 dogs on the show.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, but just the fact that like if I bring a dog home and I'm like, whoa, this is way worse than I thought, and I need a little help, like I can always call Lynn to help me, which is awesome.
And does he still have Rosie?
I have Rosie now. She lives with me full time.
Okay, because she lived with him for a little while too, right?
Yeah, we did back and forth. So I would drive her out to Arizona and he would keep her for a month and like work on stuff. And then I would go back and pick her up and then work on like everything that he taught her. So it was like a lot of back and forth, which was really cool. And that was really bad when I got her. And she's like so playful now and she's a really cool dog.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So if you could share anything with the world that they need to be doing better with dogs, what would it be?
Oh man, to use more patience and understanding when you're working with them. I mean, especially if you're getting a new dog, I think people want to go into it really quickly to change them and say, this is how it's going to be. But I'm just be with them for a little bit and let them get to know you, before you start asking for too much. I think people ask for a little bit too much of dogs when they first meet them. Especially dogs coming out of the shelters. There's so many videos and people want to go straight into like loving and petting and being in their faces. And it's so hard for me to watch because I see how the dogs feel in the video and they're not enjoying it, but we think they are. And so like, if you're in rescue and you're getting dogs out of shelters, like don't pet them the first 24 hours, like just give them space, and let them be.
Yeah, I could agree more to that one.
Yeah.
Art?
I don't have anything else.
This has been great. I could, I get into the interviews because I want to like know what's in your head and like how you got to where you are. You've always been really open. So thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Really nice talking to you.
Yeah, I've always enjoyed being around you, hanging around you. My wife, and you actually, like I said, because you stayed with us, you knew all my dogs. Our Doberman Dallas, which she passed away.
Yeah.
I actually think a lot about you, Angela, because we have, I don't know if you remember Nala.
Yeah.
So Nala, she's getting up there in age now. And so she's been very incontinent lately. Like, so, she just doesn't like, she'll be standing there and just like leaking out. So she just leaks. And so, she has to wear diapers all the time. So I'm like, this is what Angela has to deal with on a daily basis,
Yeah.
And so now it's like, because of like, I don't want her sitting in her pee all the time. I just lay out blankets on her bed and just wash them all the time.
Yeah.
So here I think of you also. I got to go to the laundromat. And, this whole load of like blankets have pee all over them, And so that's kind of what we're dealing with now with these older dogs, But you have 20 of those probably, and I have one, and I'm complaining,
The regular day for me.
I'm with you, Art. As soon as I have to do something like that, I'm like, how does Angela do this? I mean, it's like that needs to be a meme. How does Angela do this?
Just
we're
get used
standing
to
there
it.
with like dirty towels or whatever it is.
Yeah. Well, this is awesome, Angela. Like I've always had a lot of respect for you, since the time I met you. I just see you keep rising, and have the compassion you do for animals, like Freddie and Ferris, which I love Ferris. I haven't seen him in a long time, but every time I've been around him, he makes everyone happy. I just want to thank you so much for doing what you do. And can we just share the news? Is that okay to share the news?
Yeah. Nobody really knows. So they'll be the first to know on here. You want me to share it?
Yo, it's you. This is not me. This is you.
Okay. So I'm going to share just a quick little thing before this. So like 4 years ago, this stranger made a GoFundMe for me. I've never met her before. She's never met me. She made a GoFundMe for me to raise money to have a down payment on a house because I kept losing my housing every year because I live with so many dogs and it just was a big thing. And the GoFundMe raised like almost $130,000 very quickly. I was very overwhelmed by it. And I just wasn't in like a place where I could make a big decision like that. Fast forward to 4 years later. And last weekend I went to look at a house for sale and I put in an offer. And I just found out like an hour before I came on here that the offer was accepted. And I am like so excited. The house is so perfect for dogs. It's on acreage. Like I can't stop thinking about it. And I can't even, honestly, like I can't even believe that this is the house that I got. It's still like a dream for me. It's really crazy and I'm very excited about it. And just the opportunity of what I'll be able to do more for dogs out there because it's such open space. There's 2 donkeys that live on the property that are going to be left behind. So now I have donkeys and like livestock.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's really cool. I'm like super, super excited about it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, but thank you. Been a long
Yeah.
time coming. I've been saving for a house for many years. I've lived in a lot of shitholes, like
Yes,
really
you
bad
have.
houses. So yeah, this is like feels very well deserved.
It is well.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Awesome, Angela. Well, thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it. And we'll talk to you later.
Thank you. Bye, guys.